MovieWeb.com.
You know, I'm glad you dug it, because I think that the film in some ways is exactly what you expect, but for the most part, it's very, very different from people expect the movie.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I wanted to ask you about that, because the tone sort of feels a lot like a throwback to kind of, you know, some of those 80s and late 70s, 80s, like Poltergeist and Exorcist, and was that sort of the tone, the feeling kind of going for, sort of like throwback to that?
Well, the tone is that it's really, at its heart, a psychological thriller and a drama. And so we wanted to do, like in the 70s, they would have the slow burn horror movie where you're not trying to throw in a jump every 5 minutes or accelerate. You know, you don't just throw in a bunch of characters and start killing them off and then it becomes a countdown film to who's left. That you really take the time to get to know these characters. And I think what's fun is that people at first expect it to be scary and then they're surprised at how funny it is in the beginning, but it really kind of engages you in the story. So by the time things do really turn bad for these characters, you're very, very invested in them. And I just love the script because it was one of the scariest, most interesting, twisted scripts I'd ever read. I couldn't tell where it was going. Just when I thought I had it figured out, some new story twist came in. You went, oh my God, that's what's going on? And the whole way, it really, really kept me guessing. And I think Daniel Stam did a great job with that.
So the script kept you guessing. That's pretty good.
Exactly.
If it was able to keep you going.
Exactly. I've read, you know, every script out there, and it's hard for me to read a script and sort of not predict where it's going. Especially when you're thinking, okay, you know, this is a horror film. They want me to be involved.
Right.
But this film, I really had no idea where it was going. And the writers Huck Bacco and Andrew Gerlach did such a great job. And you know, Eric Newman and Mark Abraham, the other producers, worked about 3 years on the script before I read it. So by the time I read it, it was ready to shoot. It's really incredible.
Yeah, and the documentary style, you know, that's been used a lot. Blair Witch, obviously most famous, recently Cloverfield. Did that concern you at all, or was that sort of a device that you thought you could use?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like narrative storytelling, all movies are, you know, told the same way, and it doesn't seem to concern other people. It's interesting, you know. I think that the docu style is very effective when it's used right. I mean, and you can feel it. District 9, for the first 30 minutes, you're in that and you're watching a documentary. You know, I thought Cloverfield was an excellent example. Another there's a great film from the 70s called Punishment Park, which is from 1971 that Peter Watkins directed. That is probably the best of all of them. It's so effective. That Punishment Park was so effective, the government banned it from being released in theaters because it's a very anti-war film. People were worried there would be riots over the war. Like, it was really powerful piece of filmmaking. So when it's done well, it really gets you in this visceral place that it terrifies you on another level because it just feels real.
Could you feel that in the script, that using that documentary style was going to really lend towards this story really well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, you can't use it as a gimmick. Using the documentary, it's not going to be enough to get people to go see the film, and that's where Daniel Stam really, really understood how to make the most of it. You know, if you look at Wreck, what they did, that's a fantastic example of a really great, scary, docu-style film. But we also didn't want ours to be found footage. You know, found footage is like, oh, we picked up a camera and it's just there. We want our movie edited and scored with music so that it raises the question, well, who did this? Right. Was it God? Was it the devil? What was the purpose behind editing this together? Whose point of view are we really seeing this from? There's something bigger at work here. So that was the fun, was actually not making it a found footage movie, but truly a documentary.
Well, and there was some tricky narrative stuff too, where you have different characters turn off the camera and then turn the camera back on, sort of pick up different, and then when she actually is possessed with the camera, that's a very scary moment too in the film.
Well, that was the fun, and that was a great, you know, idea that Daniel came up with. He's like, she should get the camera. That was not in the script. And he thought, oh really? My God, that's so good. It's really, literally, with a horror film, it's most effective when you are in the hands of an unstable narrator. And you feel that the director, there's a madman at the helm and anyone can get killed. But this is literally, now the movie has almost been hijacked by the most unstable narrator of all. And you kind of get an insight into what's going on inside her mind, what's going to happen, and sort of using the camera as a weapon to kill. It's really, really very effective.
Yeah, and then finally the sort of faith versus man sort of story. Was that something? Yeah, was that something that you really thought hadn't been tapped into in a horror sense in a while? That we really deal with this.
The film takes no position. It just lets these two sides fight it out. And what the film, at its core, is about is the total belief in science and total belief in religion. And you know, Cotton. What's interesting about the script is it's the reverend that doesn't believe in God and that's saying this girl needs a psychiatrist, and it's the father who believes everything, and he actually believes everything Cotton tells him and says, no, the demon possessed her. And both sides neither side is willing to bend to even 1 degree to see the other's point of view. They just fight it out and fight, and they're both working for the good of the daughter, but by completely opposite means. But because they can never compromise or see the other side, it leads to everyone's downfall. And I think that that's what was interesting about the script, was writing this story that doesn't say we're for this side or we're for that side. It presents both sides fairly and intelligently, and really just watches what happened when they clash and clash and clash and refuse to see each other's point of view.
Yeah, kind of that reversal of the two roles.
Yeah.
Awesome.